What's up, everybody? Welcome to the NoPixAfterDarkPodcast with your host, Aaron Dante, who brings you the hottest interviews with the dopest people sharing their experiences all across the world. Now, here's your host, Aaron Dante!
Welcome to the No Picks After Dark podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Dante. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an amazing show for you today. I first noticed this guy that's coming to our show on TV. He's always on TV, and I always admired what he was doing. Thought he was always amazing, telling the stories every day. And I looked at him like, it's inspirational to see this guy doing amazing things in my city. And he looked kind of like me. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to watch the channel in the morning time. And I'm a morning person, so I love watching the morning news. So I was like, you know what? Let me see if I figure I can get him on the show. So I saw him like one of my pictures in, Instagram. I was like, yes, this is the chance right now. And we reached out, we spoke, and then we saw each other again at the Live Baltimore holiday party. And that was so exciting. I was like, hey, I ran up to him, I was like, hey, I'm Aaron. I'm the one, and I was probably talking a million words a minute. And I was so excited to speak to Mr. Jason Newton. And it was just amazing to talk with somebody who's doing a walk, doing a talk, and making things happen in Baltimore. And without further ado, Mr. Jason Newton from WBAL-TV. How are you?
I'm well, but you know that I was excited to see you. Truth be told, like you said, I was Instagram stalking like I do with everyone. It's like, who is this guy in this podcast? And everything I saw, pictures alone were a taste of home. And then to hear some of the stuff that was online, I knew that you were about it. Like, you were about the city. Like, this wasn't a money grab. This was to let people hear some stories of our town that they don't hear every day. And that's appreciated for me because I love a good story.
Well, I appreciate you coming on No Picks After Dark. I really am.
Hey, man.
I feel like I'm like a fangirl or something. But it's just really awesome that, we made this happen finally.
Yeah, no doubt.
Always tell people good things come to those who wait. And so we're going to make this happen, have an awesome interview today.
Yeah, man, let's do it.
So let's get my audience from all over, from Baltimore to D.C. to Philly to New York. And tell people a little bit about you. Are you from Baltimore originally? I got
this. I had to bring the City College jacket, the City College ring. I'm a Baltimore boy. Grew up. People familiar in Northwest Baltimore, Howard Park area. So if you know where Forest Park golf course is, I was thrown off of there many a times playing wiffle ball on the fairway, which I had no idea that was a wrong thing to do as a kid. My grandparents, everyone in my family is from here. And it has been a joy to come back home because you don't really get to do it in media that often. Born in West Baltimore, went to Roland Park Elementary Middle School, went to City for high school, and then off to Maryland for college. And like I said, I did TV in two other markets before Baltimore, and the chance to come back, and your parents get to see you working, and your cousins, and I run into people from second grade, man, who I thought I would never see again.
Wow.
And to reconnect and see how similar our lives are now, I couldn't ask for more.
So hold on to that second grade thing.
Okay. All right.
I always ask every guest this question.
Okay.
What is your favorite childhood memory growing up?
I was thinking about this earlier. I think my favorite memory growing up, I would stay at my grandparents after school.
Okay.
So we go there. My grandparents are 2100 Pressbury Street, and they had this wall, this rock wall, and all the older cousins could climb it and walk on it. And I'm the youngest grandkid, I still am. And I could not get up on top of that wall. And the day that I did, man, I was like the king of the world. And so those afternoons at my grandparents' house, seeing my grandparents, they're retired at that point. They were loving watching all the grandkids, hearing their stories. My Uncle Donald would come home and he would call my pay ready. It was a bunch of coins and stuff like that. That shaped me. That made me understand how important family really is.
I love hearing that. I love hearing those stories. Now you brought it back because my family, a lot of my family in West and East Baltimore. And now you've got me thinking about, so this is illegal what I was doing back in the day. It was funny. But there was a swimming pool that was near Forest Park High School. And I can't remember the name of it. It's right off Garrison. And the school was there. And I remember staying at my cousin's house.
Yeah.
and we would sneak in the swimming pool every summer night. But I could never climb the fence.
Oh, man.
And I remember I was like, I'm not going in there. I can't get out. How you guys can get in? And I remember the year I did be able to sneak in the summer, sneak in the pool. I was like, I made it now. So that's funny. I'm thinking about that now, about the swimming and hopping in the pool late night. No, you shouldn't have been there.
Man, let me tell you how small Baltimore is. That was either Park Heights Elementary or it was, I think, Langston Hughes. One of those two schools. My aunt was the principal of Langston Hughes. My mother was the principal of Park Heights Elementary School for a while. So she's probably the one that chased you out.
That sounds about right. That was oh my God. Good childhood. You know,
man.
I love asking that question because we all have different ways we grow up, and I like to ask people about that. It gives a little bit of the personal side of them. So you've already said you went to the University of Maryland, went to City High School. All right. So after like college, let's go best rewind. When did you know you wanted to be in TV? I know you went to the school, University of Maryland. You didn't go to Syracuse. I mean,
I know.
We're not gonna go there.
I've worked with Syracuse people. I know y'all are diehard. I'm sorry. I went to Maryland, but TV found me, man. Okay. The funny story about TV is that I had gone to school. I knew I was going to be a pediatrician. There was no question about it. I was going to be a doctor. I figured it out. I don't know if it was the Cosby Show that did it. I don't know if it was because my doctor, Dr. Blake at the time, was a black man, and maybe I saw it. I don't know, but I had it in my heart. That's what I was going to do. Then I took organic chemistry. And then I took organic chemistry the second time. Then I took organic chemistry the third time, and I realized, okay, maybe this isn't for me. And so, like, there was, now I can laugh at it. It was a kind of a dark spot for me because I didn't know what I was going to do with myself. I mean, I'm sitting here in college. My friends were starting to graduate. My father was an administrator there at the time. He never mentioned my grades. And I'm sure he knew. But I think it was one of those things where you got to grow up and figure it out on your own. So he let me figure this out. And I ran into some really good people in the journalism school. Not only did I have some credits that would apply, but there were things about this job that I thought I could do that. And I always enjoyed, like I was inquisitive. I was nosy. And there were things about TV that I liked. There were things about journalists asking questions and knowing things before other people knew. That I liked. I was like, can I turn this into something? And it did. Like, I think that I had a lot of good people behind me to reinforce that just because, biology and science didn't work out, there are opportunities for you to still be great or to at least succeed. And so I think without them, man, I don't know what I'd be doing right now.
So who was the person who said, listen, I think you should be I think you should do journalism. Like, were you a BJ? So did you switch over to BJ to broadcast journalism, or were you at TV? Like, was it television, radio?
It was broadcast journalism. Okay. So my major was two women who really helped me out. One is deceased, is Lee Thornton, a black woman who was a trailblazer in TV, and then Sue Copen, who was on television and radio here in Baltimore, still is, and does some freelance work now. And they believed in me. At a time when I just wasn't sure, man. Like, there were times when I was very hesitant to even call home because I wasn't sure where my story was going to lead. And then they just gave me this confidence, and I ran with it. I worked for the radio station there for a little bit. I wrote some articles for the Diamondback newspaper. And then I was like, I think I know what I'm doing. I don't know if I was great at it, but I knew the skills that I needed to pull it off. And I just needed the time to cultivate it. And I'm still stealing from Stan Stovall now, and stealing from Jamie Costello now, and Mary Bubala and Kai Jackson and all those people came before me because I know they know how to do it. There are a number of names I'm forgetting, so don't think Deb Wiener I forgot about.
Hey, he's not forgetting about you. Trust me, he's not forgetting about you out there.
But I've been blessed to be surrounded by good people, and I think I was my parents, two educators who just pushed. Not in your face push, but I think by seeing their example, I knew what greatness looked like.
You say the two women helped you. Were they your mentors in college?
I would say they are, and Sue still is. I still ask Sue questions on a monthly basis, over Twitter or phone call or whatever. Well, she may see something I did, and I can tell that it's something that I think that she's proud of. I hope. But we talk enough that I consider her not just a mentor but a close friend.
I love it. Folks, we'll be right back after these messages. We can learn a little bit more about Mr. Jason Newton. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty about him moving out to Milwaukee, how was it doing out there, leaving Baltimore, and we'll get into all that good stuff. We'll be right back with these messages. folks, we are back at the NoPixAfterDarkPodcast with Mr. Jason Newton. It's been a pleasure hearing his stories, and we're about to get into a little bit nitty-gritty. So, you graduated from college.
Okay.
Did you have a job graduating from college, or did you know you already, it was like, you know how most seniors are like skating, they're like on eggshells. Did you already know you had a job, or were you waiting?
I was one of the lucky ones. When the day I graduated, I knew I had a job. I had gone and interviewed in Salisbury, Maryland, small WBAL-TV, a wonderful station, but very small. They had all the toys you could need with editing. They had a helicopter. It was great, but it was a very small market and very small paycheck too. I remember, to show you how old it is, they faxed the offer to my parents' house, and my father looked at the numbers and he looked at me. He's like, "You sure you want to do this?" Because I mean, I'll be straight up with you. I think it was $15,000 was the contract. That was it. I know. Look at your face. You want me to say it again?
Say that one more time.
It was
for the
15
folks.
grand. I mean, when we went to go look for apartments, I mean, we were looking at subsidized housing. I mean, we were looking at all kinds of stuff. And eventually my parents were like, well, I'll help you out.
Right.
But that's how dedicated I was. I had to try this, man. I had to try it. Win, lose, or draw, I'd study for it. This is my second go round in the major. We're going to try this thing and see what happens. And Salisbury was great. It was essentially grad school for journalism, for me in my job. It was a chance to mess up and fix it. It was a chance to meet some guys who had been there for a while, like Steve Hammond and Steve Summers and Spicer and all of them, and learning from them and picking out the craft. You were talking about trials and tribulations. In my mind, I quit that job 3 times probably. There are things about the job that are tough. You know, you don't understand how many doors you're knocking on of unknown people, or you don't know how many car wrecks you're going to go to, or how many tragic stories might be like your own, maybe. But then there are those great stories that you tell that people don't know. I knew nothing about farming. You know, I didn't know anything about watermen. I didn't know where Deal Island was, and I lived in this state, so it was seeing things and discovering things that I had no idea about. And the one that really got me, so I was there at 9/11, and the mortuary is at Dover Air Force Base, and I was living in Dover at the time. And I can remember 9/11 happening and seeing the video, having no idea really what was going on. And then I went outside in a military town in Dover, and every street was there. I could have skateboarded down the middle of Route 13. I mean, there was no one. And then the eerie feeling of seeing those planes land, because you knew what was on those planes. Like, you knew that there were bodies on that plane. And then as the war started, that kind of thing going on as well. So it built a crust, man. Like, you built a crust and understood that people live differently, or even as different as we are, we have the same woes or the same things to get excited about. Going to high schools there, and kids are learning how to use cameras and stuff. Like, that was a joy. And I was still young at that point. I was like, I got something to give. So Salisbury was like, I was the puppy in the cage and ready, to go out in the world. That was the most valuable experience I think I had in my job.
So let's talk a little bit about 9/11. You were living in Dover. I mean, you were a young reporter at that time.
Yeah.
That had to change your life as a reporter. I mean, were you covering at Dover at that time? Everybody was all hands on deck.
Yeah.
But do you think that changed your career path as far as how you look at things differently?
It definitely made me understand how important individual stories were. So 9/11 is the huge story. We're all going through it. We all understood what happened, what it meant to us. But it may have meant something different to the farmer whose son just enlisted. Or it might mean something different to the gym teacher who had been in the service and had just gotten out, was itching to go back in because of that, Or for young kids who just didn't, they swore that they were watching like a movie or something and see these planes go by. I remember going to the mall there in Dover, and they decided to have sort of like a memorial. This is the day of. It may have been the day after. And all these people come out with signs and stuff right outside the mall. There was no organizer. There wasn't a set program. They stood and they did the Pledge of Allegiance. They held hands. I think they sang some hymns and stuff. We were stretched thin. I was shooting my own story that day, and then ran out to a live truck that was miles away to set up the camera to be able to do it. The current president, who was then the senator, he came flying out on a helicopter to a brief interview and flew out it was just a sequence of events that were going on. And then at the same time, as a human being, I had to go home and sort of grieve myself, and I didn't. That's another thing I learned. I didn't know that I was supposed to grieve about it. I thought, I do it. I tell you about something horrible happens. I hit the reset button. I come in the next day. I was drained by the end of that week.
Right.
You see so many things, and I had a friend in New York. I remember reaching out to them and like, "Are you guys okay?" And the phones weren't working the first day. So you're living it and you're working it. And so that is a day. I still have my timesheet from that day. I still have the newspapers from that day. Just so I can remember, what it meant to me. That every box for that week was filled in with the time that I worked, Sunday to Sunday, and they're all over 10 hours.
Wow.
Physically, I didn't feel it. I mean, I knew I had something to do. I knew this was momentous. But mentally, by the end of that week, man, I was like everybody else. You were sunk. You had nothing left.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that story with us. That's wow. My emotions started to rile up thinking about that time.
Every time
I think about that, it's like, wow. And we'll go a little bit further about that, another emotional time that's happened in the world. So you leave Salisbury. Where do you head next?
Well, when I left Salisbury, I went to University of Maryland, Eastern Shore.
Oh, wow.
I sequence of crazy events, and I thought that maybe there were other opportunities for me besides news. I learned, I want to put it delicately, I learned how much of a business that it was. No fault of anybody, it just was a business. And I thought, all right, well, I have something else to give. So they were starting up a unit there that did PR for UMES, but also taught kids how to use cameras and tell stories, which is right up my alley. I'm a son of educators, and I thought, all right, great. And so I spent a semester there teaching kids to use cameras, and they were telling stories. And they, departments would come and say, hey, we want a video about, I don't know, quadratic equations. Can you come do something with the math department? You come and do something with that. So it was great. And I was teaching kids how to do voiceovers. But I wasn't ready to sit in an office yet. I just was not. I could not stand the quiet of it. I couldn't stand. In the newsroom, we're always walking around and talking and exchanging ideas. That didn't happen. And so it was time to get out. And I loved UMES. They were wonderful to me. But Milwaukee came. I got an agent in Milwaukee came calling. My picture of Milwaukee was the plane would land, and along the field, along the airstrip would be cows and cheese and Packers uniforms and all this other stuff. And you land, and it's Baltimore. I mean, it's essentially Baltimore, a waterfront, a thriving downtown. Milwaukee has and they'll admit it, a bit of a segregation problem. I mean, people had their pockets, but there was a central meeting point where I felt like there was some melting going on. But it was a very familiar kind of city, and it felt, the vibe of it felt good. The Bucks weren't the Bucks that they are now, but people were behind the Brewers Stadium. Was great, and going there, and you drive up the road to Green Bay and got to see Brett Favre play a few times. There was something about the energy there. But then I also came in with something in my toolbox. Like Salisbury had really prepared me, so I was ready for all the things that had me down in Salisbury. I was ready for it, man. So bring it on. But it was just, I had never left home. Salisbury, I could still drive home. None of my family had really gone to. I had a cousin lived in Dubai, and that was about it at the time. And so I remember my parents, they drove out with us. And we just had a baby. I had a new dog too. And that was heartbreaking to see my mother get back on the plane, because I didn't know what this was like. And that was another awakening. That you can do it away from home. Like, there's kids in Baltimore who have been on the West Side and couldn't tell you anything about the East Side, and vice versa. Right. And there's something about that experience of being someplace else, of just going to D.C. and seeing, oh, the traffic light's a little different, they're on the side. Or going to Milwaukee and, oh, they sound a little bit different, or you know what I mean? Or their snack foods are cheese curds, what's that? There's these little, chicken house on the Eastern Shore, what is that? These little experiences that you add to your, I don't know what you call your repertoire, that you'll carry with you. And there's nothing wrong with home, but there is something cool about experiencing other things.
I mean, I've been to Milwaukee a couple times. My younger sister went to a school called Concordia.
Yeah.
It's on the water, and she was going for pharmacy school. Okay. And I had never been there myself. Yeah. And I remember I got there, and I was like, this is like a regular city. It's in Milwaukee. I mean, it's a city. Right. And, it's funny you say that. It's, I mean, they were just building the new Buck Stadium, basketball court. They're just building that. And I liked it up there.
I loved it.
I mean, it was different. But it does remind you of a smaller Baltimore. Yeah. vibe and feel, and like everything on the waterfront, and just like they had the festivals down there on the waterfront.
There's always a festival.
Yeah.
My only gripe is when we got there, it was fall changing to winter.
Oh.
And I swear to you, man, it felt like every Monday was a blizzard. I was like, I can't do this. But they clear the road so well that you don't even know it. Like schools never close, office never close.
Well, imagine going to Syracuse for 4 years.
Oh, well, all right, so I'm preaching to the choir. Yeah, I got you.
It was cold every day. So, how was it adjusting? You said you just had a brand new child at that time.
Yeah.
Married at this time, or
we were married,
and you leaving everybody behind. You have a free babysitter. You're leaving now.
Yeah.
How do you adjust to things like that? How does your family adjust to it?
It wasn't easy. It's interesting and hard and emotional going to a spot where you know nobody, and you don't know the right restaurant to go to or what bus to catch. And you just when I had my interview. They offered to give me a cab to the station. I said, well, no, I'm gonna rent a car and just drive around. And I think that helped. Like I could see neighborhoods that I liked, and I saw this place, Zafiro's Pizza, and I had that. I was like, okay, this is all right. This is my pizza joint. But it took a while, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like there were some first 2 or 3 months. It was just us. Go to work, we sit in the living room, we'll try to explore a little bit. And then over time, you meet people. You and I were saying before we came up here, I always say to my kids, like, if you can't go to the neighbor's door and ask for sugar or the newspaper or whatever, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Right.
And so we lived in a duplex, so we got to know the people downstairs. Then we got to know the people next door and formulate some friendships. Some of them are lasting right now. Some I don't even know where some of those people are. But I think that was the difference maker in making a foreign place feel like home. And I have no problem calling Milwaukee my second home. I'd go back in a heartbeat.
Hey, so what do you remember from Milwaukee? Like, what's the things that stuck out that you're always tell a great story about Milwaukee, like that, or story you covered in Milwaukee that was like,
that kind of story.
Whatever.
I'll give you a couple of things.
Okay.
One, as far as the people go, I can remember walking down the street and just trying to figure things out, and someone stopped me like, "Hey, you good, man? You know where you're going?" Or you know what? No, this is that building, whatever. Like people just. They sensed that you needed help, and they would, we would talk it out, and then we'd end up talking about kids, or whatever. East Coast may not be like that.
No,
it might be eyes to the ground, and I just need to get my stuff done, and then I'm gonna go on my way. And so that was interesting to have that exchange. There were a lot of cool stories. I remember I was there when Favre left, and that was fun to cover because we were following a plane, and he ends up the tail of the plane had the Vikings logo on it, and that was a cool back and forth to see that happen. There were so many good ones, and unfortunately, I'm old and my brain is not going to operate to get you some good ones. But for me, it was just I think the people is what made the difference too. Like there were people who I had zero in common with, and to this day, I may talk to them on a monthly basis. There are guys there who I would consider, I give them my last, man. Like, we're good friends, and so I think the people is what made the difference for me.
Got you. So let's talk a little bit about Baltimore. How did we get, when you saw something was open or somebody, your agent called and said, hey, there's an opportunity to go back home. How do you feel about that? Like, what was your reaction like when the agent or whoever called you, and then after you get the phone call saying that you got the job?
Yeah.
How was your reaction? So take us through that process.
It was tough. What the little known story is that the second call is the one that I accepted. The first call came that I was anchoring in Milwaukee. I was in the rhythm. I really loved it, and I was reporting and anchoring at the same time. And the first time it came, the job that was offered was a reporting job, and I was scared that I would never get a chance to be behind the desk again. I love reporting. I'd prefer to do both. And it was a tough decision, and we went back and forth. And I felt, all right, well, I'm going to try the trajectory in Milwaukee and just see maybe I could be the guy there. And so it was hard to call back to Baltimore after a great interview and say, I just don't think it's right for me right now. And that was tough. And I never told my mother about it. And then the second time came maybe a couple years later, and it was an anchoring job. It was on the morning show. Mindy, I knew just from watching. There's good people, and Stan Stovall, you know him, for years of being there. And so now I felt like it was the right thing, and that was ear to ear smile. There was no doubt I wanted to do it. I remember calling my mother, just hearing her joy, my father and his joy, cousins who, and really high school friends who, we would see each other once a year and calling them like, coming back, man. Wow. And be able to go to City Poly game again, and just all the things that you're able to do that you had to watch over Facebook happen, and to now be part of it, and to be among those people again, and then see faces that you thought you would never see again. That I think that's what made me smile. Like that was the excitement. The job, I can do a job anywhere, but to be amongst some old friends and good friends, like people who I knew when I would drop in, I would have my back, regardless. That was the joy.
I feel the energy.
Oh,
I feel the energy. I
can name all of them.
I can feel the energy. So, what year did you come back to Baltimore? What year was it?
So, I think I'm in year 7 now at BAL.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, was it hard for you to cover the uprising? So, you were here when that happened. How was that? Because you are a son of Baltimore. And you saw that happening live on TV.
Yeah, listen, man.
Because you were off at the time, right?
So I was at home at that point. I was living with my parents.
Okay.
And I have to tell this because it'll choke me up. But I cried that night. Okay. I cried watching them loot the store, not because not because I felt like, oh, they're doing wrong to the city, and not I cried because I knew what that pain was like for them. You know what I mean? Like, it was to see it just devolve like that, and. But the flip side of it, and through it all, and I always say to people, what makes me happy about those years was the voice I feel like young people have now. Mm-hmm. I don't think I was strong enough to speak up at their age. I think that I was accepting of what an adult told me is what has to happen. We do it, and that's how you survive. But I had opinions, but I was like, you're not supposed to say it. And I feel like young people have found a way to use that time in our history to decide, whether I agree or not, you're going to hear my opinion. And so you see Erica Bridgeford's come out. You see these young people did a ceasefire, the youth ceasefire group this weekend do things. You've seen kids at school even have some walkouts where they come back to school, but they're going to make a point that we care about this. Mm-hmm. And then they go back to school. The most beautiful thing that I saw was after everything had gone down, we were at Penn North. We did the show live from there. And to see the variety of people who came to help clean up, old, young, black, white. I saw private school and public school. I saw people from out of town come. I saw frats. I saw, you name it. And it was all for one cause, And they met there and they sang at one point. There was a vibe of things are going to be different. It's going to take a long time. Come on. With anything in life is going to take a while. But when you have the young ones speaking up without fear, that's what changes it. And that's what changed me.
I love hearing that story. Thank you so much again for sharing that. I really appreciate that. And the next thing I'm going to talk about a little bit is, again, another emotional moment in the world, because, again, we've all covered it. George Floyd, with everything going on. How was it as a black inker, covering that story? Reason why I asked, because it was very hard for me as a podcaster when my fellow black podcasters were saying, Aaron, you got to speak up. You have the audience. You have the crossover audience. And I just had no words to say at that moment. And I remember I just wasn't, I mentally was not in tune at the world at that point. I had to go to work, and I just couldn't mentally put myself into that place of talking about it. You're on TV. How does it, the show got to go on, but mentally, how did you navigate that whole process?
That's another one of those moments, man, where I remember crying through it, and for a number of reasons. I've never watched the whole video. I to this day, I've never seen the whole video. I have no desire to.
Right.
I know how it begins. I know how it ends. I think that I feel like there has to be, and there has been, a reckoning among all of us. I think that we are blessed to live in this world together. Not of our choosing. Here we are.
Right.
We have so many similarities. We have so many differences. We want happiness for our family. We want us to be clothed and fed. We may pray to the same God or a different one. But we can only be better if we're better together.
Right.
We talk about bad apples and all. Well, okay, fine. We are people who want to survive together. And that's what I get from it. That's what tears me up, because I know that there's some people who don't feel that same way. There's some people who might be selfish in the way that they view the world and themselves. You can be selfish all you want, but that circle closes and closes with you. I'd prefer, in my lifetime, to see each of us understand each other's struggle. We don't know what happens when people go home. We don't understand the struggle it is to put food on the table for some people. We don't understand what the difference is when you're the first to go to college, or you might be the first to have a full-time job, or for a lifetime you've been struggling and finally you made it. I think that we all have to appreciate what each other goes through. I have a best friend who's a cop. I have an uncle who's a retired cop, the deceased now. I have friends who are not cops. I understand that we all have a job to do. So why not work together to figure things out? I'm working on a story right now. A police officer from Baltimore, he was doing this thing, helping kids with sneakers. He would buy them sneakers. And then he took a young man to a boxing match as well. We got to understand each other and understand where we're living. That we all need someone in front of us, I feel like. And I don't want you to think I'm dodging the Floyd question. There's just so much to it. But what I gather from it is that I think that we need to live a little while in each other's shoes a bit. And find a way that our communities can be helpful. I love this whole idea about when you call 911 for a mental issue, a behavioral health issue. It doesn't always have to be a police officer that comes up, because that may not be the solution. Maybe the solution is figuring out what we can do to help this person so that call doesn't come again, so that he is safe or she is safe. So it's all about just finding new ways to make us appealing to each other, to work with each other, to understand each other. And I think that is the goal from all of this we've been through.
I love it. I know you guys, he's a busy person, so we're going to round the corner here. So, how I had people ask me, how is the morning crew? That was one of the questions that I had a couple of people ask. Are you guys really in tune with each other? Are you guys really that friendly? Like, are you guys that cool? Because people are like, I had people like, does it really happen?
What you see is what you get from all of us. No, I don't think there's anyone that you're like, oh, that's an act. Mindy is just what Mindy is. She'll give you the straight facts of the news, but she'll also laugh along with you, and we'll have a good time. When we're laughing, it is genuine. Ava is a scientist at heart, but she has a good time and wants to be correct and accurate, but she wants you to enjoy it along with her. Lacey is sharp at traffic, like what you see there, and she's sort of a utility knife. So you ask her to anchor, she'll do that. You want to report, same thing. Theo the same way, Jen the same. I mean, everything you see from us on television, there's not one of us I'm like, oh, that's fake, man. That is what you see is it. And we are a family. We've been to funerals and weddings and you name it, events with each other, out to dinner, out for drinks, whatever. And I think that's why we're successful, regardless of what the numbers may show. I don't know if we're first, second, or third, whatever, but I think that's the success of that show, is that we know each other and appreciate each other's families. I know all the milestones. I know who has kids in high school, who has a newborn, and I think that's what makes us a good team.
That's great chemistry right there.
Yeah, man.
You see it on TV.
It's real.
You see it. Now, how long did you not see your coworkers when COVID? Were you guys working from home?
Yeah, that was tough. I was in the studio the whole time, but they separated us. Okay. So I don't know the exact number, but let's just say there were 30 people in mornings before. I would knock that in half to what it was once we were in there. I don't know the exact number, but I mean, it was skeleton crew. So I didn't see coworkers for like a year. I mean, there were some who never came in the building, and they would work they would work at home and then go meet up with like the photographer and go out in the story. Right. For us, we never anchored from home or anything. I think Theo may have done it once, and Lacey did traffic from home. But Ava, me, and Mindy were always there. And it was weird. It was eerie. I mean, for an office where you're always, slapping five and talk to each other, that kind of stuff, it was weird for it just to be us. And so as people began to come back about a month ago, to see some faces, man, that you hadn't seen in a while, who had a beard and who didn't, and, it was fun to catch up. But it changed the way we worked.
Right. That's what I was going to lead into.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, right now, do you think people especially in the media, work from home now, have companies looked at it differently? Like,
sure.
Hey, we did it for a whole year and a half. It was a little bit stressful, but we could do it if we need to.
Yeah, I think that the idea that if we need to, we could is there. But I think that what we want is to be back in the community.
Gotcha.
That's what makes us different. I think that being able to, in all television news really, is that being able for us to be face to face and talk. I think the response I get from you right now might be different from the response when you're in your pajamas and I'm in mine and we're on Zoom. You know what I mean? So I think that it is being able to respond with laughter and not be, and that delay isn't there.
Right.
Was that a good joke, or was that a good question, or So I think that's the goal, but I think the ability to be able to do it if I wanted to, we can.
Okay, so I always do the rapid fire. This is one of my favorite parts of the show. I love every part of the show, but you might sweat a little bit when that's okay.
Hey, man,
all right. What is your favorite place to visit?
Oh, my favorite place to visit.
It could be anywhere in the world.
Oh, in the world?
Anywhere in the world.
That's tough. That gives me too many. I love going to a Ravens game live.
Okay.
There's nothing like the energy at a game. A good, like a good rivalry game.
I call it the nest.
Yeah, the nest, man. I love it.
Flats or drums for chicken wings?
As a kid, I loved the drumsticks. As an adult, I've come to appreciate and love the flats. I'm
Yes,
all flats.
me too.
Man.
I'm all
all
flats.
man.
Blue cheese or ranch?
Blue cheese. I know it probably sounds bougie, but I like the blue cheese.
Crabs or crab cakes?
Crab cakes.
Ooh,
I know. Again, with the bougie answer.
Hey. Okay,
Yeah.
so I mean, where do you go get your crab cakes from then? That's the question because I'm an East Side guy, so I know where I go.
The last place I went was G&M.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's West Side.
Yeah,
I get it.
Yeah, it was good though.
That's good. Okay. What's your favorite thing to do when you're not at work?
I've found cycling thanks to some guys at work, which I enjoy doing. I'm not fast, but it's fun. In golf, I'm terrible at, but I love the solitude.
What's the best advice you've ever received?
Do unto others as you do unto yourself, or you want done unto you. I think that I try to treat people the best that I can in hopes that it comes back.
And what inspires you every day?
Oh, the hope that my kids grow up happy and healthy.
And where can we find you on social media? Are you TikToking now?
Yeah, I'm scared of TikTok, man. I've gone through. I'm too old for that. So Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Well, Instagram, Twitter for the most part. I've strayed from Facebook a little bit.
Okay. And we can catch you on every Monday through Friday.
Yep.
What times?
4:30 we get up. You get up early with us. 4:30 to 7 o'clock. Then a Sunday morning, 11:30, 11 TV Hill.
Hey, check him out, man. I'm so happy we made this happen. And hopefully we can do this again on his show.
Let's do it.
Let's make it happen. Thank you, folks. Again, love, peace, and happiness. We're out.